And that win for Manchester City at Nottingham Forest means they are now just a point behind Arsenal and they have a game in hand. So it now looks very much like a two-horse race. Liverpool are 5 points off the top with 3 games left to play. In the race for the top 4, Spurs are 7 points behind Aston Villa, but they do have 2 games in hand. Bournemouth's win against Brighton means they've recorded their record Premier League points tally already. At the bottom of the table, Everton are officially safe after their win against Brentford. Sheffield United have been relegated after their 5-1 thrashing at Newcastle. They've conceded 97 goals. So it's 2 teams from Burnley, Luton and Nottingham Forest who will be relegated. Burnley play Forest on the final day of the season at Turf Moor, which could be very interesting. And Izzy Christensen and Owen Hargreaves are with us today to look ahead to everything. Before we get underway and talking about all the action, we're not going to cover this game, but we do want to show this goal from Jeffrey Schlupp, because it was just amazing.
Wow.
We've got no reason at all to show it other than we just love it.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. That was great about it. It's just where he is. The way the ball's set up and his technique, look at that, clean, it's just beautiful to see. Look at this, look.
Do you know when we've talked about goals of the season before or goals of the month or whatever all the ex-players always talk about those goals that even them in training, everybody would be like, oh, what have you done? And it
you celebrate,
like
you celebrate with them.
In a training drill with no keepers.
Yeah.
It feels like that. Got that
was a
same
great
kind of
goal.
thing.
Adam Watson's reaction was amazing, actually.
Yeah.
When it
believe
was
it.
behind, he was like, oh, I can't believe that win. I love that when your teammates are like, oh, I can't believe what I've seen.
It's just a great goal and worth looking at. Who else is having a great season? It's Bukayo Saka.
Yes.
And he got his goal in the North London derby, which means he scored in 2 North London derbies in a season. He's the first Englishman to do it since... You won't know him.
Charlie George.
You won't know him.
This is a great goal. I know. So, you know, I'm just so proud of him, so pleased what he's done, the pressure he's had on his...
He's after all your records, though, isn't he?
He can take them all as long as Arsenal continue to do this. You know, he's a great little player. He's fantastic for the club, you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, this is against... You just can't... Well, how can they give me that much space?
That was a great kit, right?
You know, the thing is, yeah, that was a great
I don't know
kit.
if they've given you the space or if it's just your instinct. That's a lovely goal as well.
Yeah, that was a good one as well. Yeah. I preferred playing at White Hart Lane. I didn't... Because the pressure to play at home in that derby and lose at home was too much. So I preferred playing at White Hart Lane. Always played better there.
Talking about pressure... It got pretty pressured towards the end of that North London derby. At 3-0 up, you think this is going to be it. And then last season must have been running through your mind come the end of that game where Arsenal had those 3 draws in a row and where it kind of felt like it was just slipping out of their grasp.
Yeah, and it was like self-inflicted, you know, and we're playing at the back. And I was saying that in that instant, because Tottenham are looking for anything to try and get back in the game. And unfortunately, when it went back to David Raya, he didn't quite make his mind up. Then he tried to chip it in, he half-done it, and then you could feel... Then you started to think, oh, no. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's self-inflicted, and you start to worry. But then, you know, then they scored a penalty. But after that, in respect to David Raya, unbelievable performance. Came and took everything, made everything... Yeah. You know, it made it very comfortable for the defenders and that. And then, obviously, we won the game. But, like, you are... petrified in that moment when they come to 3-2 because, you know, watching Chelsea against Villa and Villa couldn't keep them off them, I thought I'm starting to feel that was happening with Arsenal if they kept going. And, you know, obviously there's a couple of decisions that could have went Tottenham's way, but to get that one done in such an atmosphere and take the emotion out of that game because it was all about winning it, I thought that was brilliant in the end.
There was a shot of Declan Rice after the penalty went in and they were walking back to the middle of the pitch. And he was like, come on, let's go. You know, and last season, I don't think you would have saw that, you know, heads might have been a little bit down. And I think that's what Declan gives you, even though his personality and those, that's what you need. We've all been there. It's, you know your players when it's difficult. And I think Declan's at his best when it's difficult. And I love the fact that that team bounced back and won that game because they've achieved so much, this Arsenal team. And they're in a different place. You know, they really are. I think they're ready to take it if Man City slip up.
And even if they are in a different place, it still would have been those memories from last season. And even if there are significant changes in terms of the team, they do have those voices in there who are driving them forward. It was still nervy in terms of just memories apart from anything else.
Yeah, and, you know, as a player, you learn from that. But it's interesting what you say, Declan Rice being one of the players in that moment yesterday at 3-2, and you're thinking, wow, you know, this could end badly. But he wasn't there last season, but he will have watched it all unfold when he was at West Ham, and he knew what he was coming into, and he's been absolutely unbelievable since the second he walked through the doors at Arsenal to where he was yesterday. And it's people like him that have made this team stronger. And you're looking at them walking out onto the pitch. They are a massive team in personalities, in stature. They've just got so much more about them this season. And Arteta, like, I don't think he's getting enough credit, to be really honest with you.
I think that when you look at you have to look at City. Let's face it. You look at City, and I still look at, and I'm not sure where they're going to drop points. But we're talking about trying to chase down a team that are going for 4 on the spin. That would make them the greatest ever team in the Premier League. And I think that when you look at some like Arsenal fans, they're very despondent, and that they shouldn't be despondent because you're trying to chase down, like, I don't know, a spaceship on a bike,
Yeah.
right? And
Well,
so,
their squad is a bit better than yours, isn't it?
just a bit, but like I think that the mere fact that you've just got to keep going, keep putting them under pressure, you never know what's going to happen. I'm pleased that they're in that position.
If they don't win it this season, the title, Arsenal, where do you think that puts them next season? Are they just going to keep going again until they get it?
They're going to have to, because you can't just stop. It's like, oh, you're not going to clock off. You have to take from, obviously, last season. I think they've improved this season. So I know the margins are very small. Liverpool found that, you know, losing out to them so narrowly on a couple of occasions. But the margins are so small, then you're starting to go into... You've got to think about having a season where you don't lose. This is the margins that are set. The bar is so high, Kels. You know what I mean? No, it's like, I don't know if Arsenal could do any more. Like when we looked at Liverpool, when they lost in those seasons, they can't do any more. Because this team, they just keep pushing the bar more and more, and this is why. You can't take anything away from what your team's doing, because... And actually, again, they're overachieving trying to catch up with this team.
I don't think there's any shame if Arsenal don't win them at all. I think they're building one of the best projects in the world of football. I think they're ahead of schedule, big time. So this summer, recruitment-wise, will be massive. Everybody criticised the Kai Havertz thing and stuff.
Yeah.
He looks like he's been an absolute diamond of a signing. So they're going to get some brilliant players in the summer, and I think they're going to push... You know, if Pep leaves Man City eventually, they're going to be the ones.
You think?
Arsenal, because I think they're building this talented young team. They just need a bigger squad. They need They need a striker. They need a bit more depth when they need to make changes. But I think they're right there.
It's interesting you say about Kai Havertz, because I was one of the people at the start of the season, I wasn't sure where he's going to be best. And I still don't think, even Arsenal fans, I'm not sure whether they can identify where his best position is. For me, it's not in the midfield, but it's not as an out-and-out striker. He's somewhere in between. But I think this is where Arteta's a little bit ahead of the curve. I think he's identifying players now for spaces, not formations or positions. And I think Kai Havertz is the absolute epitome of that, that what he brings to the team, it's unidentifiable, but it's effective.
It's because you see him, Kel, he'll pop up, whatever position he pops up in the pitch, it's like he morphs into that player, like the pass for Saka, he drops into the left. An unbelievable pass. If a top midfield player plays that pass, people will be talking about it. As a centre forward, the physicality, the holding up, the finishing, you know, wherever he ends up, whether it's 9, 10, 8, he'll do the job.
But you know, Izzy, we were just talking about coaching badges, and you know, Izzy's just on that journey. I was thinking, if you were a coach and you had somebody like that at your disposal, he'd play all the time. I think he's that talented. He can play so many different positions, and I think he gets a little bit maybe misinterpreted because of his body language, and he's got that Ozil vibe about him sometimes.
Yes.
But he's like 6'2", he's got great technique, he can play about 4 different positions, and every coach that has him, Chelsea, Arsenal, everybody plays him. Everybody, and that tells you, he's a player's player. I know he's not a number 9, but I just think this kid is so talented. And I think if I was a coach, he'd be the guy I'd want to play, because I think you know what you can give. And he scored the winner in the Champions League final.
Absolutely.
He's big in big moments.
Big game player.
Izzy, just say a bit more about that idea of Arteta identifying a player for spaces rather than positions.
Well, I think that football now is... There's a lot of research out there at the moment that playing centrally gets you results in games. And I mean, playing more possession stats of a football match are always assessed post-game. But the stats of your possession that happens in the middle of the pitch is so important for winning games because it's the control of the opponent. And we know it's all about manipulating spaces and stuff like that. But when you've got players that know which spaces to occupy, which spaces become free on the pitch, and they have the nous to go into them and play in them, it almost makes formations irrelevant. Because we spend a lot of time talking about how a team is going to line up, you know, are they 4-3-3, 3-5-2, whatever. But actually, if you take the average positions of every player post-game and then say, well, actually, this is the system we played, instead of identifying it before, because you don't know what the game's going to give you. And how many times do you hear coaches speaking post-game about, we didn't know how they were going to set up today, but we went with what they thought they were going to do. And then it's how you adapt in game. And ultimately, as a coach, on the sideline, you can't get your messages across to your players too often because of the noise inside a stadium. So if you can empower your players to understand where they have to exploit.
And why.
And it's just the pure manipulation, I'm going to get the better of you. And it's all about taking your opponent, you know, into a place they don't want to go.
Yeah, it's almost kind of coming full circle again from players who want to be coached in every single sort of minute aspect. Is giving them a little bit more power back to them. When we talked as well, it's not just about the players who've been added. It's not just about the way that Arsenal have set up under Arteta. We've talked about the sort of resilience that they have. And you mentioned the mistake made by David Raya. And what your comments on that are is how he recovered from that and the game that he had having made the mistake. Because players, goalkeepers will make mistakes.
That's one of the maddest passes
and it's
ever.
just like...
You know what?
I'm not... Well, first...
You know the thing is,
like, we're going to come back and we're going to talk nicely about him, but who's he passing to? Well,
he's picking out a very difficult pass, and I think that what happened there, which was unbelievable in that particular mirror...
Yeah, it's true.
It's like someone shot him out. Someone shot him out of a cannon. He just went and he didn't stop. And I think that he got there so quick in his eye line. I think that as the ball's coming to Raya, I think he's trying to pick up maybe Thomas Partey with I think he's there just on the right, and then he stops because he's got Richarlison coming, and all of a sudden he sees Romero there, and he's trying to chip a very difficult ball.
You can't even do that with your good foot, Wrighty, in that moment. Never mind with your left.
And the thing is, the ball's not moving quick enough for him to get the... And I was thinking, oh my God, just clear it. And the problem I had with that situation, Kels, was it was 3-0 at the time, and they were cruising, but Tottenham was still in the game because they had a lot of possession in the game, to the point where my Tottenham mates are saying, we outplayed you. When it was 3-0, I said, OK, I'll give you that one. But the thing is, Kels, we gave them a way back in, and the crowd got into it, and then they scored that goal, and obviously it's gone. And so then it starts to get nail-biting. But I think the way he dealt with it afterwards, and the players dealt with it, they calmed themselves down and finish the job. And that was what you have to take from that game.
Because I was thinking back to last season, because, I mean, you think about Aaron Ramsdale making a mistake in the Tottenham game, and it's not to dig out Aaron Ramsdale, but he would appear to look, or he would look much more affected by his mistakes on the pitch than Raya. And that's part of what you were saying earlier about having a Declan Rice in there, or having these characters in there. And Raya seems to be one of them that can make a mistake, things can go wrong, but he can just reset and go cold again.
That is the hardest thing for a professional football player to deal with, that mistake. Because you sat down, you're thinking, oh, what have I done? I've let him back into the game. And to mentally be able to try and forget that and play as well as he did just tells you that he's a top player. Because a lot of people, and I've been there, you can fold, you know, and you can crumble. And for him to be able to find a way to bounce back, and that's what makes him a pro, a top player, is dealing with that moment and coming out of it well. In the dressing room, the way his teammates hugged him at the end of the game tells you a lot about the way they think about him as well. So I thought he come through massively in that moment.
With all these positives for Arsenal, and correctly, we're speaking about the positives for Arsenal at the moment after that performance and that result in the North London derby. Do you think they win every game between now and the end of the season?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult still, because I think Bournemouth will be a tough game at home, like all of the games are for Arsenal leading into this run-in. But I do think that they can win the last 3 games. But then I genuinely believe that, you know, to see Man City slip up will be... I can't see it. Like, even Pep saying if they draw, Arsenal win the title. That's him saying to his players, we can't even afford to draw. That's what that is. Not him saying, oh, Arsenal's so good, even if we draw. we're going to win. He's saying we can't even afford to draw. And that's what I want. That's all Arsenal can do, is just keep winning those and putting the pressure back on them.
You know, there's a really difficult decision coming up for Tottenham fans when they play Manchester City, because either they beat Manchester City and put Arsenal in the driving race for the title, or they lose against Manchester City, put Manchester City in the driving race, but in the process might miss out on Champions League football next season. It's got quite tough decisions ahead and quite tough days ahead for Tottenham fans. But in terms of the games that Arsenal and City have got left, these are starting to look a lot more manageable, certainly as far as the graphic is concerned.
I know.
We can read them a bit more quickly now, but it's hard to see where these teams are going to slip up, Izzy.
I'm looking at Manchester City's fixtures there, and I think that is a tough run. I really do. I think the Fulham game could become unpredictable. The Tottenham game, we know how Tottenham can perform against Manchester City. They've done it in the past, they've beaten them. But I was looking at that Everton game for Arsenal at the end, the last game at the Emirates, and I'm thinking Everton are now safe. Had they not been safe, I think that could have been tricky for Arsenal with the way that Everton play, the siege mentality. But I think the pressure's off them a little bit now with Everton. And I think Arsenal win all their games. I think they will. It's just what happens with City.
The other one that that stands out there, I think, between the top two, and I know we've got Liverpool on there, but we'll talk about them in more detail, because this week has sort of seen the end of their title challenge. But that game between Arsenal and Manchester United at Old Trafford, just because Manchester United have got a knack this season, we've talked about many times before, of not necessarily playing well, not winning the stats like Tottenham did against Arsenal yesterday, but winning the game.
Yeah. I mean, they could beat anything, Man United. It's mad. Even the game against Burnley have more possession than Man United at home. I mean, but the thing is, it probably suit United in a way to play on the counter and hit them. But I just think, as you mentioned about Mikel and so, I just think he's done such a brilliant job of formulating game plans to nullify those threats. So I think they'll beat United, because United can't control any game. The middle of the pitch is so open, and Arsenal with Ødegaard and Declan in there, they're brilliant. So I don't see it too, and I don't see United.
You don't see a lot of chaos in Arsenal games, do you?
No.
You don't see that.
That's the thing with United, and again, any team that goes, even Sheffield United, go there and score and make chances. And if you're organised against United and don't get into the noise and the crowd and Bruno and Angelo Garnacho doing their stuff and just stay calm, you will play through them. Then it comes down to how many chances can Onana save for them. You know what I mean? I'm not saying... You know, I've seen it all season.
Saved a few against Burnley,
yeah,
didn't he?
He saved a few against Burnley. So, again, you look at that game, and whereas before you look at it and say, Arsenal, Man United, oh, my gosh, Arsenal need to win it away from home to win the title, you'd think, wow, this is too tough. But, like, Man United in the current climate, you have to just go and be organised, and you probably can get something from them. Bournemouth game worries me more than anything out of the 3 games.
Not the game against the most dynamic and entertaining team in the league?
What do you mean?
That's what Eric Ten Hag said about Manchester United.
Yeah, to him, you know. And
well, they've been entertaining.
They have been entertaining.
But like roller coaster.
Yeah,
yes, exactly what it is, a roller coaster. And again, I would never write them off simply because of the individuals. But at the same time, you can only go on what you've seen from Arsenal, the facts and the defensive record, the offensive record, you know, the numbers on the players. So you think that the numbers the players are putting up, and you think they can go there and they could cause a problem.
You're kind of right in that you'd watch them. You will watch all of Manchester United's games. They're entertaining in that sense, but only because you've got no idea what's going to happen.
I think a lot of people are finding Manchester United entertaining because they're not where they used to be, and that is something football fans thrive off, isn't it? The rivalries that have been built over the years, and then a team starts to fall off and drop off the pace. I'm sure a lot of United fans are very happy Liverpool are out the title race now, so it's funny how football works, but they're not... I don't think it's controlled chaos at all. I think some managers control chaos. I think Postecoglou, I'm not saying chaos, but he likes that high press, high energy mistakes.
Like
but
when
we've got the
Klopp
energy
first
to
come
get
with
back
the rock
in.
and roll stuff.
Exactly. I don't see that.
Deliberate high risk, rather.
Absolutely. I don't see that in the United. I think fundamentally the spaces that they leave vacant are, you know, they're very dangerous.
I can't believe it. A team of this, at that level of a coach, a so-called good coach, the spaces that a team that are second from bottom, and all the teams, but a team that's second from bottom can come to Old Trafford and have the majority of the possession, is just, something's not right.
I can't believe they haven't fixed it. I mean, we saw this from the first game against Wolves. And we thought, oh, maybe it's, you know, early on in the season that, you know, they're not fit personnel-wise. They've had a lot of injuries. every game is the same. The spaces in there are just... I can't believe they haven't fixed it. You know, the season's almost over. I just think United fans will be delighted when this season's over because it's been a tough watch.
Burnley fans will be